First of all, introducing our challenger.
Coming out of the blue corner.
He's going to step in and he does. It's all over.
Let's bring on the boom.
This is Eternal MMA.
All right, everybody, thank you for joining me and welcome back once again here on the Eternal Insiders Podcast. We are officially back for the year 2024. I'm being joined once again by my usual co-host for these segments where we like to talk about the cards that were and the cards that are coming up. We're talking about the cards coming up today, most specifically the Eternal 82 card coming up. Maybe we'll touch a little bit on Eternal 83. But with that, please welcome back in Mr. Darryl Martin. Darryl, pleasure to have you here on the show once again, brother. Absolutely love having these chats when we do pop on the show. How is everything with you? How's your 2024 kicked off so far, man?
Yeah, man, it's been really good. Been able to, like I said, I've been trying to get to a few gyms and say hi here and there. So that's sort of all moving ahead. Going to get up on the north side in the next couple of weeks and try to get out to Integrated and up to Base and a few other gyms and have a bit of a look around. And yeah. Outside that, I've been practicing my pronunciation of fighter names.
Oh yeah, I think we've been doing much of the same sort of thing, man. So I mean, don't look now on some Instagram pages that are getting right now. It's all lies and it's all fabricated. It's all AI mix and match as far as us mispronouncing names there. So very sorry to insert name here for maybe the name we got wrong a couple of times. But
if Blair Breitag could change his name to Blair Bleetag, that would make. We would have to edit the video then.
Let's make it legal. Let's make that name legal for a Brer Bleetag or however we sort of pronounce it, how we sort of fumble through. We can't get it right every single time on the podcast, Darryl, so we've got to forgive ourselves sometimes. I mean, I've been guilty of many a gaffe myself. I think most notably with the Compton brothers there at some point. So, we've said a few weird and wonderful things, but hey, we soldier on and we move ahead.
But look, I saw on his Instagram today that, he is looking at legally changing that for us so we don't have to edit that podcast, which I think is a nice maneuver from him. I think that's very grown up and very adult.
It's very gracious. So I want those documents signed. I want to see the proof, Blair, or Brer as it might be when we do see him. So we look forward to seeing him on the Eternal cards when we see him as well. But that was one we did stumble our way through. But we'll make amends and we'll forge ahead. We'll try and get it right from now on. We did talk about last time we were on the show and we were talking about the year that was 2023 that you were getting into a few gyms. For those who might not have potentially seen that podcast, if you haven't, you can certainly go back and have a look at that one. It was a fantastic little podcast shining the light on the year that was 2023. But Darryl getting himself around to the gyms up north in Queensland and checking out everything that's going on there. You can shed a bit of a light on what you have been doing, Darryl, for those that haven't seen. But what you have been doing is phenomenal and it's very interesting and it looks to shine a light on a lot of the guys that we have coming through this MMA community.
Yeah, look, it's obviously with Eternal, they're trying to invest into their, their ground roots MMA guys, and they're sort of trying to, do that reciprocal media where they help the gym helps them, and that ability to get into those gyms, see some of those beginners, see some of those guys right at the very start of their career, and then be able to watch them from where they start to where they end up. It's obviously those kind of stories are really good. To get that type of footage and content is fantastic for anything that we do in the future. And, it's obviously beneficial for the gyms to get their name out there, what they're doing, their coaching staff, their ethos, all that type of stuff. And obviously in some of these gyms have a long storied history in MMA in Australia, and to hear some of those stories, their sort of beginnings to where they are now, having a look at some of the people they've produced and how they've seen the scene change. So, it's a good sort of overall series that we're looking at doing that'll, sort of cover across a lot of bases where people will get a little bit of a history lesson in terms of MMA and its beginnings here in Queensland, and and then also the ability to see where they're at now and to see some of these up and coming guys and even see some of the already established guys, the way they train, see who's in those camps, see the different methodologies that are applied by different gyms. Just like, again, it's just good content for the brand, good content for Eternal, and good content for the gyms. And just, obviously too, it's a training process for all these gyms and all these fighters. If you are going to go somewhere one day, you are going to make it one day, media is going to be a really big part of it. And we've seen people who are good on the mic, people who can promote themselves. It's the difference between where that decimal point is between those zeros. It can change what you're worth just on your ability to sell a fight, your ability to be marketable, your ability to talk. So why not start now? Like all things, whether it's amateur or just local scene MMA, to be good, you need to practice all areas of that now. Of course, always fighting, skill acquisition's always going to be number one. But media is also something that you may have to do later on in your career. And whether that is just on the local scene or whether that's on the international scene. And if you get a good taste of it now and that ability to talk and, be able to express yourself and give yourself a little backstory, all that type of stuff, it helps all those guys. So again, it was a good idea from the boss, Cam, sort of, again, trying to reinvest back into the community that obviously will then help him, if that makes sense. He's trying to put money in and effort into a community that will then in the future thank him by coming on the card, being loyal to the brand, to all that type of stuff. So, it's a reciprocal thing. And I think it's a good, smart move by Cam to sort of see this gap in the market in terms of local MMA and sort of fill it.
No, I couldn't agree more, man. There's a couple of really good things you said there. I mean, you take the podcast even here for one, and just, the guys being able to not only hone their skills in their actual mixed martial arts career, but you're right. I mean, the media side of things, a huge part of what puts the dollars in their back pocket. So I like to sort of treat this podcast in the same way that, hey, you're fighting with Eternal MMA. This is where, you cut your teeth and you learn to go on to bigger and better things as a professional, but the media's a big part of it as well. And I like to treat the podcast in the same way that, hey, you haven't done a lot of this sort of stuff before. Come on this podcast, learn how to do that sort of stuff. Very curious to see what you're sort of doing out there with the gyms as well and seeing what content comes out there. But yes, to your point, Cam very much investing back in the MMA community. I mean, we love seeing, a lot of those dyed-in-the-wool Eternal MMA guys. Of course, we've got a lot of fighters that come from all different places, different parts of the country and overseas as well. But I mean, I do like seeing a lot of those, familiar faces, the Taser Malones of the world that have spent their entire, amateur career, professional career coming through the ranks of Eternal MMA. So if that's what we've already sort of had up until this point, and we did touch on the growth of mixed martial arts in general in this country, with you guys doing what you're doing, getting out to the community there and fostering some of that movement, some of that growth back into the pipeline for Eternal MMA, and being able to see that journey even prior to sort of getting here into Eternal MMA with their mixed martial arts journey, to get a sort of sneak peek, I guess, sort of behind the curtain to that journey. I mean, it shines a light on, not only the promotion, but those guys as well, and get them the sort of exposure they deserve. So let's keep an eye out for that one. Keep an eye on what comes next for Darryl Martin and what he does there with those gyms. Ahead of what we have in an exciting card that we're here to talk about, Eternal 82, and a big card it is. 2 big title fights. Unfortunately, of course, we did lose a couple of title fights from that card. It was originally billed as a 4 title fight main card. We did unfortunately lose Alden Bates and Caleb Rideout off the bottom of that card there. Caleb Rideout unfortunately dealing with a bit of an ongoing injury issue, it seems. I know the guys that do the matchmaking at Eternal MMA tried their damnedest to keep that fight together for Alden. The fight was offered to a number of opponents. Ultimately, the fight couldn't be made, and we certainly wish Alden all the best. But we also had Anthony Drillich himself, the flyweight champion there. He lost a couple of opponents from what I know. Same story. The guys tried desperately to keep him on that card to be able to defend his flyweight title. The good news is, though, because we're a regular promotion here and we got fights happening left, right, and center, we got cards coming out our ass. He moves to Eternal 83, where he takes on the former Pancrase champion Soturo Inamoto. So Anthony Drillich will get to defend his title on the following card, following Eternal 82 at Eternal 83. So that's what we do here at Eternal MMA. We got cards galore. Anthony Drillich moves on to that one, so we get to keep him there and we get to see if he can defend his flyweight title for the very first time. But we still have, at the top of that bill, we have got Quillan Salkilld versus Don Marfan for the lightweight championship. Quillan Salkilld looking to defend his title for the second time, my apologies. That fight against Don Marfan, of course, is a rematch from their previous fight, a fight in which Quillan Salkilld won that original fight by rear naked choke. Those guys have gone on and done nothing but win ever since. Don Marfan going on his own 3-fight win streak since losing that only fight that he had to Quillan Salkilld, now 4-1, with Quillan Salkilld himself now 5-1. 2 young guns, 23, 24 years of age at top of that bill. I mean, you can't ask for anything more Quillan Salkilld, a Perth boy. We're back over there in Perth at the HBF Stadium in Western Australia. So a lot to look forward to in this fight. I mean, this is high-level stuff, Darryl. I mean, Quillan Salkilld, what a young champion, what an absolute stud he is. And Don Marfan coming up through the ranks and really starting to show the evolution in his game. We've touched on it a little bit before, but we keep this fight at the top of the card. It was always the main event, and we've still got this one sticking. So what your thoughts on this fight here, Darryl, as we look forward to that one?
Yeah, look, this is the fight that had to happen, and it's a fight that Don Marfan's put himself square in getting the redemption fight. He's done everything he could to get back. He was offered the fight earlier. I think he smartly made the move to stick one more fight, one more camp, one more chance at increasing that skill base before he went back and fought Quillan again. Quillan obviously has looked fantastic. He, he's defended the belt, solidified himself as a champion. He hasn't missed a beat. Again, young, up and coming, fit. He's got all the aspects of MMA at a high level. Which we saw in the last fight. He out wrestled, he out jiu-jitsu'd, he outstruck, he out cage wrestled. He beat the Pastor,
Brett Pastor,
beat him top to bottom. So we saw a lot of that. Don Marfan's obviously matured as a fighter. Every time he's gone out there and fought, it is that growth. Like, you'll see a lot of fighters who are good fighters, and when they fight, they're always good. But in terms of they win fights the same way, everything, you know what I mean? Where I think with Don Marfan, we've seen a trajectory of increase in skill, increase in confidence. I think his conditioning looks better. He himself just looks like a more all-round fighter. Now, would have I liked to see just a little bit more stand-up from Don Marfan? In terms, I'm talking about in the ring. He's obviously doing it in training. And
considering where he trains out of, right? And, the Team Compton Training Center, he's got to have it in his back pocket there somewhere.
Yeah, and look, this is I guess this is the unknown, right? Because when you're Quillan and you're watching the tape on Dom, you're not going to see a bunch of the stand-up that he's got. So, you're not going to see that footwork, those little tells, whether he drops the hand, whether he, when he's throwing the jab, whether he brings it down to the hip and back up again, whether, how he hooks it, he hook with the head forward, just little tells, little things that fighters, when they're watching tape, they notice what these guys get up to with their, different moves and their stand up and stuff. So there's not a heap of that for Quillan to look at. With that said, Quillan's obviously very, very accomplished on the feet, and he's fought plenty of people before. I don't think it's going to be a massive problem, but it does give Dom a chance in that sort of opening stanza or so to potentially surprise Quillan with something he hasn't seen before, because it just isn't a great amount of footage to look at. So there is that potential for Dom to come out and, just be a little bit maybe offbeat, a little bit awkward, a little bit something that Quillan hasn't seen and hasn't seen in Dom. With that said, Quillan's just, like I said, he's a consummate professional. He's, he fought a very, very dangerous, very, very experienced opponent last time. Passed with flying colours. And again, this fight here, this is for all the chocolates. This is, you sort of almost absorb the other guy's wins, if that makes sense. You beat that guy. You're the guy who's beat all those other guys. It puts you a step away from everybody else. And again, I'd imagine it would probably put you on the radar for, for a potential maybe Dana White Contender Series. There's probably for both of them. There's a few title defenses in between that, but at least they'll be on the radar. They'll be looked at. They'll be, hey, if a spot comes up, those guys are there. So this fight's obviously got massive importance in terms of the belt, in terms of both of their progression, but just in terms of where you're heading now out into that ether of, the MMA landscape. If you get this win, it's a really big deal. It's you're fighting the very, very best in the country. And if you can come out there, put on a stellar performance, well, I think the world's your oyster.
No, and probably especially for Quillan, right? Because, he was originally slated to fight on that Road to UFC show before his opponent was poached off him to go and fight one of the other fighters on there who lost his original opponent. So, we know Quillan is already in the crosshairs of the bosses over there for the UFC at the moment. And I mean, one more fight on his record, one more win on his record that he has over Dom. Of course, he already has that win over Dom. But I mean, you sort of look at Quillan's record too, and he's sort of got that kind of double hat trick of sort of wins in terms of 2 submissions, 2 knockouts, and as you said before, an absolute complete dominant bell-to-bell performance for 5 rounds against Brett Pastor in his last performance, where he looked virtually untouchable in all facets of MMA. So you got to think for a guy like Quillan Salkilld, yes, there is that potential that he gets through Dom Marfan, beats him for the second time, defends that belt for the first time. For the second time, my apologies. That there is still that potential. We know that lightweight is a pretty flush division here in Australia, and there'll be more challenges for him there, no doubt. But for a young guy and a young buck, I mean, he's probably looking at guys like, Dom Marfan's training partner in Tom Nolan. Unfortunately, Tom Nolan, speaking of, didn't get the win with his introduction to the UFC. But another young guy with a similar record going over to the UFC, and I'm sure Quillan's looking at that and thinking, hey, you're training with a guy at TN Compton Training Center that I'm about to fight for this championship belt. I look good. Why can't that be me that sort of goes over and do that? And to your point, I'm sure Dom is looking to steal that thunder from Quillan Salkilld. But I mean, just an absolute testament to the matchmaking here at Eternal MMA as well. If we talk about, skill for skill, pound for pound, as far as the talent level for the age, we don't see it a lot. A lot of the times we're seeing guys that are very young fighting a lot of older guys. The skill levels are very different. This is high level for such a young age. And as you said, so much on the line, not just the belt, but, implications is sort of where they go next. Curious as do you think there's sort of any keys in terms of, I would imagine that Quillan is the favorite going into this fight. Is there anything specific that you might think that Dom sort of needs to do anything different? He did lose that first fight by submission. We know that Dom does favor the ground game, but we know Quillan is quite dangerous on the ground. Do you think there's anything specific that Dom needs to do to get the job done, to change the original story on that first fight and get himself that title win?
Yeah, look, I think I would agree with you. I think Quillan's definitely the favourite going in. He's probably got the mental edge. Anytime that you've already got a victory over an opponent, you have that a little bit of extra confidence yourself. He's, from what we've seen, again, not saying anything about Dom's stand-up, but we've seen more of Quillan's overall game, and he's, like I said, I think there's what would you say? I think the odds are in his favour. But with that said, this is for Dom to step up. This is his moment. You have lost to this guy. This is your redemption fight. This is your time, the time now. And you probably know this guy's going to come in with that confidence. And I think Dom's probably going to want to come out early and make a statement and let him know, I'm not scared of you. I'm not worried about your ground game.
Well, the other factor, going over to Perth again to fight him for the second time in Perth, and I mean, we know what the Perth crowd's like over there. I mean, it's that's got to play a big factor too in terms of what must potentially be daunting to go over there and try and get that job done. That must play a big factor going into someone's backyard at that age. That must play, some sort of mental mind games, I would have to imagine.
Well, they're a very vocal crowd. They're one of the best crowds that I've ever heard for MMA. Perth. They turn up, and and for their local fighters, it's like Brazilian crowds. They're so vocal and very. It's great to hear. Great to be there. It's very. It's a good atmosphere. But yeah, look, it's obviously being hometown has. It's got its advantages. Obviously, the energy that the crowd pushes into you, but two, fighting in front of your home crowd is also, I think, is a tough thing where your friends, your family, your work colleagues, whoever comes up, there's a lot of ego and pride and everything that's involved in that type of thing, and keeping your nerve and being able to get out there and forget about the crowd, forget about everybody's hopes, wants and wishes, and just follow the game plan, do what you need to do and get the win. In your hometown, sometimes it is a little bit more difficult, but he's proven on a few occasions now with the belt in hand that he can do it, that he is capable of doing it. And again, I think it's all about Dom Marfan's mental space going over there, turning up, using that local support that they have for him, sort of almost against him, almost like use it to pump yourself up. Like, I'm going to be the villain. I'm turning up to steal this from your boy.
Like, hey,
I'm
the
gonna do it."
expectation's all on you. You're there.
Yeah.
Your family's there. Hey, there's no pressure on my shoulders. I get to breeze in. You know, everyone's here to see you, man. The pressure's on you. Like, maybe you can take advantage of that.
Exactly. And that ability to go there and get to play the heel, get to play the villain. Like, I am coming and I'm going to take this from you in front of everybody. But it is going to require him to step up, to come an extra level up. He's going to have to just, I think it's like I said, in that opening stanza, I think he almost has to come out and put a stamp on it and just really let him know. Hey,
Maybe an early takedown, like straight away, like just get in there and really sort of,
Look,
like put the stamp on it.
I don't know what it'll be, but I think in that first stanza, he just needs to let him know that last fight was last fight. This is a new fight, and I'm a new fighter. You're not fighting that Don Martin. You're fighting the new one, the improved one. And like I said, I've got no doubt they would have put together a game plan. These guys over at Compton's are very, very skilled, very good coaches. I've got no doubt they've been working with him, closing little holes in his game. And like I said, it's not going to be what it was last time. I'm expecting a much tougher fight. And yeah, like I said, although Quillan definitely has the, I think the edge, the advantage, I think it's all there for Dom to take. And I think he's got the skills and the ability. And yeah, like I said, it's going to be a big moment on the night, and it's who handles that moment. You know, there's going to be a lot of pressure, a lot of hopes and dreams, and it's, you know, who handles that moment better and who comes with the improved game plan.
No, I mean, I think if anyone can sort of handle a situation like that, and I mean, you know, speaking to the men that matter in terms of what we can expect from this crowd, I mean, from what we've been told, Darryl, I mean, we've been breaking records every time we go back to the HBF Stadium in Perth, Western Australia. From what we understand, we're something like a good 500 tickets sold up on what we were this time. Last time coming in for the last Eternal card we have there, which is just absolutely tremendous news. Sounds like we're going to break more records, so going to be a bigger and badder crowd than ever. But for a guy like Don Martin, I mean, very cerebral guy, you know what I mean? Like, very smart. For someone sort of so young, you know, he's not just all, you know, brawn and all that sort of thing, like come out swinging. Like, he's a smart, educated guy, and you can just tell that, you know, he's someone who really could handle that sort of moment. Someone that even if it was something that fazed him, you know, he'd have the mental resources to be able to sort of, you know, put that behind him and come out and, as you said, be the villain and come in and steal the show. But, I mean, it's a fascinating matchup even to sort of beyond the physical fight itself, because they're two very different guys. As I said, you know, Dom, smart, says a lot of the right things. You know, he's sort of a happy-go-lucky guy at the sort of the same time. Love Quillan's demeanor. I think I've said this before on the show, in that Quillan doesn't say a lot, but everything he says what he means, and he fights with it exactly the same way, because there's no fat on his game. Whatever he throws with intent. When he goes to the ground, it's with intent. What he says, he means with intent. Doesn't change a lot of his facial expression when he talks, which is being complimented by that fantastic mustache now, by the way. But just two young guys in the game, two very seemingly different personalities coming out there and putting it all on the line. So we get to be witness to see what happens here, man. Do we get a big upset and Don Martin is the champion? Do we see Quillan Salkilld defend for the second time? It's all to be seen, and we're only, 9 days out? Tickets still somehow available, so make sure you get yourself to eternalmma.com to get yourself those tickets, or tune in on UFC Fight Pass. But that's not all we have, because we have, before that, we have a hometown favourite in one Rod Costa. You mentioned Brazilian crowds. I mean, we got a local Brazilian there in Perth, Western Australia. Perth fan favourite in Rod Costa, looking to defend his bantamweight title for the very first time against one Alan Philpott, the outspoken Alan Philpott, the very well-travelled, very experienced Alan Philpott, coming in off a win against Sean Etchell in his last fight. A very similar opponent that they had, of course, Rod Costa winning the belt against Sean Etchell in his bantamweight title fight. So a number of storylines woven in there, not least some of the online jabs, a few of the online barbs. I'm sure you've seen a few of those getting around. Maybe it's for show, maybe it's to promote the fight, but apparently, according to Alan, when I've had him on the show, there'll be no touch of gloves there, and he's had a lot to say. So this is almost sort of, I don't know if I want to call it the people's main event, so to speak, but I mean, this is one to be excited about for a very different reason to what we've got in the actual main event card, because it's Rod Costa, the hometown favourite, versus Alan Philpott, looking to come in and stir things up as he sort of likes to do. So I'm sure you're very much looking forward to this one. Fascinating matchup stylistically. What are you looking forward to about this fight, Darryl?
Yeah, look, I just like Alan Philpott. I like the cut of his jib. He's, like
Me
I
too,
said
man.
before, that ability to talk your way into and out of trouble. He's got that in spades. He's got he's fun to listen to. He's always got something to say, and again, it keeps the scene exciting. It's and some people don't like that, but I like that some people don't like that. You have those fighters you like, fighters you don't like, fighters who act a certain way, who you hate, and you want to see them lose. It's good. Like I said, you need to no. It can't just be everybody talk the same, act the same. It gets so boring. You know what I mean? So it's I think he's a great character in the sport, and I like him. And look, they've both got a common opponent there, which you can draw. And it's hard to play MMA mathematics and go, okay, well, how did Rod beat him? Okay, how did Alan beat him? Who looked better beating them? It sort of doesn't really work like that. And that's why MMA mathematics never works, because styles make fights, and a certain style against a certain style doesn't mean those two guys this guy will beat that guy because they fought a similar guy and one guy won in a more dominant way. Styles make fights. Alan Philpott, he's obviously, he's got it all ahead of him. It's a tough fight. It's a tough fight. If I was a betting man, I would put my money on Rod Costa. I think that the safe money's there. But at the same time, like I said, I think he thrives on being that villainish character. He thrives on being that guy. And I think he likes being the underdog. I think it makes him rise up a little bit. It makes him put a little bit more in. So, yeah, look, it's there for him to win. I think definitely in Rod Costa's favour. And obviously, Rod being there in the hometown, again, getting that energy from the crowd, doing your weight cut where in your gym, in your sauna, access to your people, you know what I mean? It does that does give you a hometown advantage. But at the same time, like I said, it's just I think you could probably get Philpott to fight out the back of Will Kenya, and he would turn up and do the weight cut, in the local toilet or somewhere and fight and do it. He's just a robust character. I don't think he's into too much of the mind, like as in terms of who's home ground, where am I? I think the kid loves to fight, and he's going to go out there and put it all on the line. It's not going to be a dull fight, that's for sure.
Oh, hell
Neither
no.
Neither of them are going to want this to go the distance. There's a bit of bragging rights here, and there's been a few barbs and a little bit of
more than that. Oh yeah, man. It's been rough. I mean, it's been reasonably sort of quiet recently, but I mean, the big sort of setup to this is, when I talked to Alan on the podcast, his original sentiment was that he wanted the Rod Costa fight some months ago. Apparently, in his words, that it was something that did come together. He believes that it fell apart due to an apparent injury that Rod had, and was a bit miffed that Rod was in a grappling match about a weekend later after he was told that he couldn't fight him in the MMA match. So that's what sort of set the fire under Alan there a little bit. But I mean, you sort of flip the tables. I think Alan had a fight matched up with Paul Loga. Unfortunately for Alan, he ended up having to pull out with an illness there, and he copped it back in spades from the rest of the other MMA guys, like Justin Van Heerden, who's chiming in. Rod with some colourful language on social media, giving it right back to Alan. And I mean, it just really set us up to get this fight back. And thank God it came back, because it doesn't always happen. You don't always get that. The stars just don't align. But we got it back, and the fight's happening again, and we got a title on the line, and it's very exciting. I mean, you talk about the Perth home crowd in favour of Rod, but I mean, Alan Philpott's a guy that he's got fans that travel with him. I mean, he's very popular in Sydney. I saw him when he fought. Those guys fought on the same card at Eternal 78. Unfortunately for Rod, having that loss at featherweight against Ethan Thomas, but that was where Alan did get the job done against Sean Etchell, of course. And his fans were just going absolutely apeshit, man. I mean, Northern Ireland, I think that Alan's from, and the UK, I guess, Northern Ireland, but his fans were there in voice, man. So I expect they'll definitely be there.
For anybody who's listening to this podcast, he said that Northern Ireland's the UK, not me.
I was wondering.
I did not.
I only
say
backed
that.
up the UK because I can't remember if he's actually from Northern Ireland or the UK. I'm not saying it is, so I just let's just scroll up here. Is he Northern Ireland? Did I get it right? He's from Northern Ireland. Northern Ireland there, Alan Philpott. I got it right. I didn't have to try and correct myself a second time. I wasn't trying to say it was both the same thing. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't just saying he's from the Northern Ireland when he maybe was from the UK. So I should have trusted my gut instinct there on the first one. So
yeah. They might be talking about some of those barbs. There might be a few barbs about that comment come back to get us.
We just cut that. Yeah. I'm in charge of who edits this podcast here. It's me, so I'm going to make sure that I don't look too silly or anything. So no, we'll keep it in there. Alan Philpott from Northern Ireland and the travelling fans that he has. But yeah, I mean, those barbs were slinging, man. I mean, everything he was saying about Rod, he gave him his flowers when we talked on the podcast and said, listen, got to give Rod his credit. He would outdo me in the grappling, no problems. And he also said, I got to give him credit as well because he's Australia's best boxing bag. So he said, it's not going to go to the ground anyway, and I'm just going to be pinging his head off for the entire fight. So he said, congratulations, Rod Costa, for being the greatest punching bag in the country. I'm sure Rod's got his thoughts and feelings on that. But I mean, tremendous theatre there from Alan Philpott, knows how to promote the fight. So it's just, it's made it that much more fun, that much cooler. Those guys sort of barbing at each other. A lot to look forward to. Can't wait to see it go down.
Well, it's one of those things too. Like it's all fun to say those things, but when you turn up, you have to back those things up because again, when you say
it raises the stakes.
It raises the stakes.
Yeah.
Absolutely, it raises the stakes, and this is a good fight. Again, getting it back together, getting it for the fans. It's been a long time in coming. There has been a bit of back and forth in relation to, like you said, there was some funny comments made from either side about pulling out of whatever, and that people were surprised people had kids because they kept pulling out, and all sorts of funny things I saw in the comments. I thought it was, but again, like we said,
just the Wild West on Instagram, man. Yeah.
All the way back at the start of the podcast, we spoke briefly about that. Just that, it's good to, again, build those fights, practice that stuff, have good chat, good banter. The boys will get in the ring. I have no doubt whatever happens, they'll leave it all in the ring. And at the end of the fight, I'm sure a handshake or a hug will settle that debt there and then. But until then, there's a lot on the line when you speak those things, when you say those things, and nothing's forgotten until that fight's finished. So there'll be a fair bit of mongrel in that fight, and both of them will be in there to sort of, again, I don't think anyone's looking for a decision win in that fight. They want that victory and they want that finish on the card. And I think maybe even just post that fight, there might be a few words spoken to each other, a little bit of general discord. And but like I said, usually once two people have solved their differences in the ring, there'll be a hug and a handshake afterwards, and everyone will go and have a beer. But like you said, it certainly has been a great build up to this fight, and now it's who backs up their words.
No, and we're certainly going to be the beneficiaries to get to see that one. I mean, both guys, a lot of experience. I mean, Alan Philpott, massively experienced, something like 35 fights at 31 years of age, which is just absolutely incredible. I mean, both guys have fought some very tough opponents. Rod coming off a couple of losses, last year to end his 2023, and the start of the year didn't sort of go his way due to a couple of fights falling apart from injuries and various things. But that sort of period between 2020 to 2022 was 7-2, I think. Had a run of 7 wins and 2 losses at least between that period. Very, very close, contentious loss to Khan Offley. You could call that fight either way. Obviously beaten very handily by Jack Jenkins, but we know the caliber of Jack Jenkins. Obviously now firmly in the UFC rankings, doing big things there. I mean, even a guy like Alan Philpott. I mean, you look at his record, not only 30-15, but I mean, he's fought a couple of good guys that have made their way to the UFC. I mean, Nathaniel Wood, a guy out of the UK, legitimately UK. He's a UFC fighter, and he's actually got a win against Nathaniel Wood. So, he's fought that caliber of opponent. Also, a name I saw on his record, a guy that I'd sort of long forgotten about. I'm not too sure you'd be familiar with the name, but a French kid by the name of Tom Duquesnoy, who retired early for some reason. He had a fight against him. But, I mean, just talking on that, these guys are fought a who's who. They fought UFC caliber opponents. And we get to see it all unfold here on the local MMA scene for Eternal MMA and the best promotion in the country. So, again, like you said, massive build up to that. We get to see how it plays out. We get to see who comes out on top. Does Rod defend the title for the very first time? Or does Alan Philpott come in and spoil the hometown show? But I just wanted to ask you one more question just on that fight, because you might be able to shed a bit of light on this. I just mentioned that, for the end of 2023, Rod is coming off 2 losses as a pro, but back up at featherweight where he's normally fought. He's coming back down to bantamweight where he's only fought that one time where he did win that title against Sean Etchell. Does that sort of momentum, that negative momentum, I guess, having that run of 2 losses, does that play into the mind of a fighter now coming in? It's sort of an odd situation where you're coming off 2 losses, but you're coming in and defending a belt in a different weight class. How much do you think that is potentially going to be a factor for Rod coming into this fight?
Well, look, it's the dichotomy of the situation per se, in terms of, one, certainly you don't have momentum. You've lost 2 fights on the trot. He's in a position where he's not used to being. So there's certainly going to be some mental games there, and there's probably some stuff goes on in your head, when those things happen. But at the same time, you don't want to end up on a 3-fight skid. And he's going to obviously be doing everything he can to make sure that he doesn't lose the belt and end up on a 3-fight skid, which would be, obviously not a good place for him to be. It's not a good place for any fighter really to be on a 3-fight skid. You obviously want to try to avoid that wherever possible. I mean, it happens to the best of them. The very best in the world will go on skids for whatever reason. But yeah, look, no doubt it's playing in his head. It's a little bit of extra pressure. The belt's on the line. You've gone 0-2. You sort of, you know what I mean? You're in your last couple of fights, it obviously, it's going to play on his mind a fair bit. But again, he's a seasoned fighter. He knows what he's doing. This is a different weight division. He's sort of got to try and put all that stuff behind him, go out, and you can only deal with what's in front of you on the night. But yeah, look, it certainly adds another element to the fight, another sort of, ingredient in the mix of, how much has all Philpott's talk got into Rod's head? How much is he doubting his own skill set? How much is that like, hey, I've lost a couple. I'm in front of my hometown. I'm defending the belt. This guy's talked a bunch of shit about me. There's a lot of pressure there. There's a lot of stuff that's on you. And it's, again, how does he take that? Is it a drive? Is it something that pushes him forward and puts him to that next level where he's, hey, I will die out there in that ring. There's no way I'm losing this fight. It just can't happen, won't happen. Or does it sort of impact him and he does a lot of head miles in the week leading up to it, thinks a lot about the fight, you know what I mean, gets a negative, you know what I mean, goes out maybe a little bit more cautious than he usually is. There's those things that do play in, and you see that. You see that in fights where guys come out and, they're worried about, I guess in higher levels, worried about their contract, but even here on the local scene, worried about their reputation, worried about their belt, worried about their status in the division. And it does make them fight a different fight to what you're used to seeing from them, because they're thinking, hey, I just want to get through this fight and I just want to get a win. I just need a win. And the problem is, when you don't fight the way that's got you to where you are, sometimes that works against you. Sometimes that's, you know what I mean? That's not what you need. So hopefully his team, which he has a fantastic team over there, no doubt they're, and again, you go out, you have a camp. If he's had a good camp, he's done the rounds, he's beating guys in his gym, he's feeling good. No doubt they will have done everything they can to prepare him and to talk to him and to get him into that mental space where he just deals with Alan on the night in front of him and try not to let all those other things that must be swirling around get into his head. Because again, I think with Alan, it's just a very, very different kettle of fish for him. I don't think he cares. He's won. He's lost. He's got this massive body of work.
Yep.
And that's it. He's beyond that. He does not care.
Well, he was on a 5-fight skid before he got that win against Sean Etchell himself. So, it takes that one win and all of a sudden the mojo's back.
And he was fighting top level guys. But at no stage did I ever see him fight differently, do anything. I just don't think he cares. And that's the X factor, is Alan's ability to go out there, not care, fight the way he always fights, try to knock your head off. And, that's a part of his, it's a part of what makes him good to watch and makes him a good fighter, because he's consistent. And yeah, like I said, Rod, very good. But yeah, you're absolutely right. There's those things swirling and those unanswered questions that I guess we won't know till that bell rings.
I mean, what you can definitely sort of say about Rod, a couple of things there. If those are the sort of things that would play on the mind of Rod Costa, he's certainly not the kind of the guy that shows it, because He's got that sort of almost nonchalant, I don't know if I want to say attitude, but it's at least that sort of demeanor in that, Rod knows who Rod is and he's very at peace, with potential outcomes. Anytime that I've ever spoken to Rod, there's never been sort of, this false bravado coming out. I'm going to come out and submit him in the first round. I'm going to come and knock this guy out. He goes out there and he's like, look, I'm going to put my skills against this guy. And, if I'm the better guy on the day, I'm the better guy on the day. And, it's in terms of his record, he's been the better guy more than often than not. Like I said, he had that amazing run between that sort of 20 run to 2022. And as far as giving up on yourself, one thing you can't say about Rod Costa is that he's a quitter because, we saw him in that Jake Jenkins fight that obviously lost handily, but he had these legs kicked the living shit out of that. He's dropped most of Jack Jenkins' opponents and broken the legs, and Rod Costa was the only guy that fought to the very end of that fight. You know what I mean? Even to get that belt when he went up against Sean Etchell, a former flyweight champion, a very skilled fighter out of Tasmania, one of the better fighters that we've had here in this circuit. He was losing that fight. He was getting boxed up quite handily, came back, didn't quit on himself, and got that submission win. And what has led to him having this title and putting that on the line against Alan Philpott. And obviously Alan being Alan, you just talk about the guys that he's been up against recently. You look at his last three opponents. Abdallah Biata, a huge prospect in his own right. Diego Pereira, mainstay of Eternal MMA. Justin Van Heerden, he's our eternal featherweight champion who's been on a massive run himself. So, 5-fight win streaks be damned. These guys are fighting some of the top level talent here on this sort of local scene. We get to see how it all sort of folds out when we get around to Eternal 82. We've got a couple of more we'll quickly brush over, but we get our man Wes Kappa back on the show for Eternal 82. Very much looking forward to seeing the return of the Decapitator. He fights against a Korean by Hong Sung Chan. We've got a couple of Koreans coming over to fight on that main card, but he goes up against Hong Sung Chan. But it's just generally fun to see Wes Kappa back in an Eternal MMA card because we got the privilege of seeing him there for the first time over in Perth. We had the fire alarms going on and everything. We had Wes coming out with a little spinny hat on. And we got to see a bit of a treat of him coming in and showing a bit of sort of that old school boxing sort of style that he sort of brought to the table. Got the win by the doctor's stoppage there, but he came up against Kevin Piras, I think it was, in his last fight, and looked fantastic and got that excellent knockout win against a very flashy Kevin Piras. But what a personality. He was our comeback fighter of the year for 2023 for Eternal MMA to have the amazing boxing career that he's had. Come back in and want to do this this MMA thing one last time. Has fought predominantly at catchweight. He did say after his last couple of fights that he wants to run at that lightweight belt. So there's a few more little storylines tied in there for that title fight that we got at the top of the card. This fight is officially a lightweight title fight, so we get to see if he can bring in his words, his fat ass back down to lightweight, get himself in there, get himself a win. But Wes Kappa, we love Wes Kappa around these parts. Cannot wait to see him back in there and see what he can do against the oncoming Korean.
Look, I think this is just a fun fight because there's probably little to no doubt that these Korean fighters have never ever heard of Wes Kappa, so they won't be daunted by his extremely large volume of work that he's done in boxing, kickboxing, MMA. He's obviously done it all. So
ignorance is bliss for the Koreans, not knowing about him. Put it that way, yeah.
Look, I think it really is. Ignorance is bliss in that situation because sometimes you can overthink a fighter because of their record from what they've done. You over prepare. Oh, I need to do this. I need to do that. I need to do, you know what I mean? Your head goes a million places. I think it's good for these Korean kids come over here, not knowing anything really about Wes Kappa. Obviously, it'll be an interesting when Wes walks out and the crowd loses its biscuits. He'll probably have a bit of a look around at, who's this bloke? What haven't I heard? What don't I know? But no, look, these Korean guys they're good fighters. They prepare very well, and obviously they're trying to bolster themselves in the region as well, in the Asia Pacific region, and it's fantastic to see them come out here, and we're so happy to have them. And obviously the ability to fight an international fighter is always fantastic. Someone from a different country, trained differently, trains with people you've never trained with, a different style, different everything, a different ethos, the way that they construct their game plans, everything. And, Korea is really trying to, they're into their MMA. They love their MMA. They're becoming a strong MMA country. And it's good that we're getting that sort of, that reciprocal relationship of being able
That's
to
fantastic.
share fighters and
Yep.
stuff. And it's, it's obviously good for us, good for them. And, I think it's great. And to come over here to Perth, I mean, anything in Australia is never going to be a home crowd for them, but to Wes Kappa in Perth, and just obviously the excitement that comes with Wes Kappa, I think will all be a great experience for those guys. And I think it's a good fight for them to come out and see a guy with such high level striking. And I'm assuming they're going to have to bring a grapple heavy game plan is what I'm assuming they're going to come with. And again, another opportunity for Wes. He's going to be lighter. Can he keep the power at that weight? Does the weight cut take anything out of his stamina? And what have the boys done with him over there in terms of raising his ability to do defensive grappling, which is what they seem to be instilling in him? Keep him out of trouble on the ground, get him back to his feet. Each round starts back on its feet again. He's very, very good with distance management. So, it's a good fight for both these guys. And like I said, I would just assume if they've Googled him, done anything, that they're probably going to bring a grappling heavy game for him, which, I mean, look, Wes has got to get used to that, because if I was fighting Wes, I don't know, I'd probably lie on my back and butt scoot or something, like do some shit like that. Like, there's no chance I'm going to bring a stand-up game to try and fight that guy. So he must know that that's on the cards. Well, I assume he would think that's on the cards. So again, it's good for him to get a camp in to fight a guy who potentially will put that game to him, and gives him an opportunity to, in real time, against a guy who's going to be throwing very real punches, very real submissions, very real takedowns, to sort of, again, gauge where he's at, see how he feels in that lightweight division. Am I too drawn out? Is it too light for me? Is it not for me? Or you come out there, put on another Wes Kappa banger performance, puts the Korean kid away, and we're off to the races, and we're starting to talk seriously about him in the top end of town.
No, I mean, there's definitely a couple of things there. I mean, first of all, as far as the grappling side of things, we did see Wes get taken down very early in the first fight that he had back with Eternal MMA. Got taken out a couple of times, but it's sort of every time he got grappled or sort of got taken down, he got out of it just a little bit better every time, to where he was able to sort of keep it standing on the feet. And I think with the couple of Koreans that we do have on this card, because before that we do have Khan Diata, one of the two men involved in the fight of the year last year. He's fighting before Wes Kappa. I'm not too sure if these two guys train together, but it's a couple of Korean guys. Lee Jong-hwan is fighting against Khan. But both of these Korean guys, while they're different weight classes, that's a catchweight fight with Khan Diata and his opponent there. But both of the Korean guys look like they are quite grapple heavy. They look like they like to set up their grappling with their jab, with their strikes. They look like everything they sort of want to move to, from at least from what I've seen, is to get the fight to the ground. And I mean, for Wes fighting against Hong Sung Chan, my apologies, he looks quite ferocious on the ground. Everything he looks like he does is with intent. It's not to lay and pray. It's to clinch. It's to get to the ground. And when he's on top of you, he wants to move to full mount. He wants to ground and pound, and everything he throws, it's like the Undertaker, man. There's no fat on that. It's everything is ferocious. If it's standing up, he's looking for that plum clinch. He's looking for the knees, but he's not doing it reckless. So I think that's something that Wes definitely has to look out for. I think it's a similar story for Khan Diata. Coming in that fight. Khan, obviously, like I said, he had that absolute banger of a fight last year to get the fight of the year against his opponent. Unfortunately, that didn't go his way. Khan now 1-3 as a professional fighter, but he'll be looking to bounce back and get the job done in his own right. Over there in Perth, Western Australia. So, and as you said, the Korean guys coming over, and we've got that sort of relationship, with that sort of Asian region and all that sort of thing. I mean, we were talking to Cam before he came on the podcast, Wes's opponent, Hong Sung Chan, he was, unbeknownst to me, he was over here a couple of cards ago, cornering his training partner at a Korean top team against Ethan Thomas. A fighter that obviously just fought against Rod Costa, and said that he absolutely loved it here. Spoke to Cam, spoke to the man in charge and said, I'd love to come over and fight here. Please count me in if there's ever any opportunities here. So it's not simply a matter that we're going to these regions out of necessity because we can't get the fights here. We've got these guys that are well established in their own countries on some quite good looking promotions over there in Korea, and coming over here and wanting to fight in Australia and just sort of, mixing with the community here. a lot of respect shown. So it's a fantastic thing to see. We get to see some exciting fights, and we get to see the sport, culturally grow and build those relationships abroad, as well as fostering our own talent here. So it certainly is a fantastic thing to see for those guys.
Yeah, no, like I said, it's always good to have those relationships. Back in the day, Kerry Dunn, who ran a promotion called Spartan and Fight World Cup, he used to bring a lot of Japanese fighters over, and it was always fantastic to get those Japanese fighters over, watch them fight. They had a very different style, and again, it's just good to get an international opponent. It's just a little something different. It's and it's good to build those relationships with those gyms so we can continuously get fighters back and forth. Get Get that sort of influx of those fighters in, because it builds out those cards. They're quality fighters. They build their own skill set and they build their own records, and that ability to show promoters wherever they are that they're willing to travel to get fights. And it's a little bit of a hark back to, I'd almost say, old school MMA in Australia, where we did see some especially Japanese fighters come out and fight our guys, which was, always was a really fun thing to see. And it was great for the guys. So, yeah, I'm super happy that Cam's fostered this relationship, and we're going to see more of it.
Well, I mean, it's got to be also the lure of, being able to fight on UFC Fight Pass, because, of course, we are broadcast live and exclusive on UFC Fight Pass for those guys to not only showcase their talents here in the premier organisation, mixed martial arts in Australia, but also to showcase to the world and, and the millions of eyeballs that we sort of get watching from, whatever country we've got them tuning in for. And we know they're tuning in from all different parts of the world. And we see that translate into the guys getting the opportunity fed sort of directly to UFC. So the path there is obvious, not only for the guys that live and fight in Australia, but for those guys, as you said, Cam, fostering those relationships to come over here and as a different avenue to get some different opportunities they might sort of want to look forward to in the future. So very good things happening there. And just to finish out on that, I mean, can you imagine Wes Kappa comes down and fights at lightweight? He's made no secret that he'd like to go for that lightweight title. And we see how that fight plays out with Don Marfan and Quillan Salkilld. But could you imagine Quillan Salkilld retains the title? I'm just saying Quillan Salkilld there because, I mean, just that matchup tantalizes me to potentially see, I don't know if it happens, but a Wes Kappa versus Quillan Salkilld. I mean, Wes Kappa in a title fight in general. If Don Marfan gets the win, let's see that too. But, I mean, Wes Kappa in a lightweight title fight. And again, potentially against Quillan Salkilld sometime in the future. Not to take anything away from this fight coming up at the title fight main event at Eternal 82. But a man can dream. That'd be incredible.
No, I see where you're coming from. And again, I think it's going back to what I said earlier, is we just haven't seen a lot of Don Marfan's stand-up. And I think that's why you want to see Quillan, because we've seen Quillan stand
just
up. It's
something
so exciting.
selfish of just some hands, man.
Yeah.
Like some old school hands versus that new school kind of, young, brash, but a little mix of that new school, old school, the mustache and everything, and just a little bit of this, and Wes with the sort of that boxing style. I mean, and sort of the old horse versus the young buck. Like it'd be just something so fun and so cool to look forward to. If we could think of anything else outside of something as exciting as these two young guys going out in the main event, I mean, that is a potential matchup in the future. And to see these guys on the same card and the potential call-outs we can get from that, it's just another thing to look forward to for Eternal 82, man.
Yeah, look, like I said, I'm the same as you. Don Marfan wins. I'm just as happy to see Wes Kappa go against him. It will be a different fight. Obviously, I guess for the pure pugilist fan who loves to see a little bit of knuckle, obviously Quillan versus Wes Kappa, just to throw down, barn burner, because I think both of them would have that little bit inside them that first person to shoot a takedown.
I was going to say, let's keep this standing up. Like, let's do a little bit of that.
Yeah, I think that first stanza, it really would be like, yeah, of course. I mean, it's MMA. You've got to win the fight. But I think, obviously the bragging rights there, the first person to make the other guy change his game plan, shoot a takedown, I think there'd be some, it's a little moral victory if you're able to.
Well, gentleman's agreement maybe there.
Yeah. But look, like I said, Ben Vickers and the boys over there at Scrappy doing a fantastic job with Wes. The more time that they've got him, the more that they're going to instill into him this defensive wrestling, defensive MMA, defensive BJJ, my apologies. And the more time he gets in that, the more experience he gets, the harder it is to keep a guy like that on the ground. And every time he's on his feet, he's a dangerous guy. So even a fight, Don Martin, it's got to start standing. They know what he's probably going to be looking for. And like I said, Ben Vickers is a wily character. He's produced guys who are fighting in the very, very top levels of MMA around the world. So I think even in the Don Martin fight, I think we would find out. But again, I keep saying this over and over again. And to your point earlier, the gym that he trains at is a striking gym. They're an MMA gym, but they're known for their striking. I have no doubt that he can strike. But I just think that he very smartly has used his, his A game to defeat all these opponents and get back to this title fight. But there's no doubt there's hands there. There's striking there. It's just we haven't seen a bunch of it. But I really think that this fight in 9 days time. 9,
I think it's 9.
9 days.
We'll say 9. We'll say 8.5.
Yeah, 8.5.
Yeah, we'll say 8.5.
I think there's a fair chance that we're going to get to see something. I think we're going to. But circling back to Wes, yeah, look, like I said, he's a fan favorite. He's fun. For $2.50 a week or whatever the pissy amount of money it is to have Fight Pass, $9 a month. I would watch a Wes Kappa fight for $9 a day.
100%, man. Fuck off your KO subscription for $35 a month, man. Get yourself the UFC Fight Pass and see some cracker fights here, man.
Again, we've been over this before. $9 a month. What's that? $120 a year. Like, if you can't turn up to these Perth cards, these Melbourne cards, these whatever cards, it works out at what? Like $10, $15 a fight card?
Peanuts, man.
No, it's nothing. It's less than a ticket. Go and get Fight Pass. If you can't attend in person, you want to see these guys fight, it's nothing. It's nothing. You're doing yourself a disservice. You're doing the scene a disservice. Your team, everybody. The more eyes on this sport, the more subscriptions that come from Australia. It helps the sport. It helps your friends who are in the sport. It helps the scene in general. So like I said, if you can get on the nose bag, if you can jump on the Craig Jones Caterpillar,
yes.
If you can do that, just I don't know, share the bag, cut it in half with your mate. I don't know. Just put $10 aside, help everyone out here in the scene, get yourself a monthly subscription. And hey, if you miss the fight, you can go back and watch it whenever you want. You can 100%. Go back and see what we're talking about. If you want to know why we hype Wes Kappa so much, go back and watch the fight. If you think we're lying, go and watch it.
Oh, we ain't lying.
Go and watch Alan Philpott. Go and watch these guys. All these fights are catalogued on there. You can go and watch it anytime you want. It seems to be a very easy $10 a month to spend in comparison to whatever else you're getting into.
It's a beautiful app, man. I mean, it's come so far. I mean, I remember when I sort of first had it, it was actually a piece of shit. But I mean, I can go in here at any time and type in, the first name I think of one of our fighters that's fought one time in Eternal MMA, and there they are right there. I can go back and watch their fight. So, you're absolutely right. Not much money there to support our scene. I mean, you use it to watch, the fights overseas and that sort of thing anyway. But to be able to support our guys, if you can't turn up to those fights, and I mean, we say that. We know the guys turn out for their fighters at the HBF Stadium, Perth, Western Australia. From the very first bell, you know what I mean? It's not like, the one time I've been there, I sort of rocked up right on time for the first fight, and I thought it was going to be a walk-in. I thought I'm just going to walk in here because I assume, Australians, I'm thinking, maybe they turn up for the main card and that sort of thing for a local show. Fuck no. Like the line was out the door before the first fight on the prelims and that sort of thing. So we know the guys are supporting him at the show. So, support them on the Fight Pass prelims. Like you said, that's money going back into the pockets of these guys indirectly, but I mean, it's more eyeballs on them. It shows the guys overseas that we've got the eyeballs here. It helps foster their careers. And that's ultimately what it's all about. That's what we're doing here. That's why we do this podcast. That's why we shine a light on those guys. It's for them. It's because, we give a shit about these guys, the hard work they put in their gyms, in their fight careers. And it's only so long. And we got a duty there to sort of prop those guys up. Shine the light on it, buy the tickets, get yourself to eternalmma.com, get your ticket there before they sell it, and they're selling absolutely hot. It's not a word of a lie. Or get yourself that UFC Fight Pass, because like you said, it'll be 8.5 days out, so we're getting up to that one. Eternal 83 will follow that some 30 days later, but we're pulling back-to-backs here, so We do have, that's about all the time we have here, Darryl. But, I mean, we've got to just mention, that's not all we had for that Eternal 82 card. There is some exciting fights. We do finally have a professional women's bout on the card. And Mina Hedaya out of Freestyle MMA, home of Justin Van Heerden. And Alexander Volkanovski, she is coming back to fight as a professional against Courtney Martin. Toby Meach, fresh off his recent submission win, his very impressive submission win. He's coming back in to fight a young and up-and-coming Daniel Mitchell. It's another fight to look forward to. Julian Justiniano, he remains on the card. He did lose his opponent, Chris Ustianovsky. Forgive me, his new opponent escapes me, but we do get to keep Julian Justiniano on that card. So we do still have a very incredible main card to sink our teeth into. I'm looking forward to it. I know Darryl's looking forward to it. We're all looking forward to it. So make sure you tune in one way or another. Darryl, it's been an absolute pleasure, man. Great chat. Looking forward to that main event. Quillan Salkilld versus Don Marfan. Who comes out on top? Let's see how it happens.
Can I borrow you for just 30 seconds?
Borrow away, man. We've still got a bit of time. We're good.
Just while we're on the podcast. So you probably can't see, but this, yeah, okay, you can't see.
Oh, it wants to.
This came through today. So one of the local gyms here where some of the fighters and stuff go and do their jiu-jitsu at, it's called Art Suave. It's here in East Brisbane. The lady who owns it, Emanuela, obviously she's a lovely lady who owns a gym in a very male-dominated area of, combat sports and this and that. And some scumbag today decided to come into the back of the gym while a class was in session and steal one of the bikes of one of the competitors, one of the trainers there. So I'm going to get Luke. I'm going to send Luke this footage. I'll get him to put it up. So if you're around Brisbane, you see this bike or you see this guy, report him to the police. If you have to hold him down, if he resists and you have to Kimura him into next week or accidentally inside heel hook him to death, whatever happens, just as long as we get the bike back. But, this is one of our gyms up here who really supports the scene. A lot of these guys come to Eternal, support the scene. And for some scumbag to come in daytime while a class is on and steal someone's mode of transport, the way they get to training, to and from training, it's a scumbag maneuver. You're an absolute bottom feeder. Like, I just, mate, bring the bike back. I'm going to make sure I'm going to get this on as many people's social media, as many MMA fighters,
circulate it,
as many BJJ guys, everyone as I can. Mate, bring the bike back, put it back at the gym. No questions asked. Everyone makes mistakes. Go put it back. But if you don't, everyone's going to have your face. Everyone's going to know who you are. Don't be a scumbag, mate. Bring the bike back. We might all fight each other in this community. We compete against each other, but it's a very, very tight-knit community. We all look after each other. Emanuela's a lovely, lovely woman who's doing her best to provide a space for people to train in down there. She's done a great job, like I said, in a very male-dominated area. So if you're out there and you see this stuff, I'll send to Luke. I'll send the footage of him stealing it, and we've got a still photo of him. Please share it and please help this guy get his bike back and stop scumbags like this. You
said, is this video, is it actually on their social media at the moment? Can people actually go over there and see it prior to being circulated, or is this just footage that you've personally got at the moment yourself?
No, I think it's on there. It's not on their social media. They have a private page for the people who train there at that gym.
Okay.
And every so often I'll go down there for a train, so I am on that page.
But Art Suave BJJ Brisbane, yeah?
That's in East Brisbane.
Yep.
Like I said, we'll put up the footage. I'll send Luke the footage. It's pretty good footage. It's disgusting the way he crawls in on hands and knees to avoid being seen, drags the bike out backwards. We've got a pretty good still shot of his face. There's a good video of it. He looks like someone who you would probably identify pretty easily. And again, although we compete against each other, all that stuff, it's a close knit. We're all trying to help each other get better. And people stealing bikes, that's not a part of the community. That's not a part of anyone getting better. So if you see the scumbag, like I said, look, wrist locks to begin with as minimum, I think. Wrist locks minimum. And you just take it where you need to from there. But at the bare minimum, call the police. And if for any reason, mate, you're watching this and this does go across the socials and you do see it, just bring the bike back.
That's all they want.
Put it back at the gym. Yep. No questions asked. Just give it back to the dude and life will go on.
And I mean, while you're at it, I mean, just as a matter of like enhancing the community, I mean, get over to Art Suave BJJ Brisbane and give them a follow there, just as a way of sort of supporting those guys. We're all sort of trying to look out for each other there. But yeah, let's spread that around. Let's show this guy's face. But I mean, like we said, hey, at the end of the day, we just want the bike back. So get the bike back. Let's not be stealing from the people that are trying to grow the sport in this country. Don't be stealing from anyone in general. I mean, least of all the guys that are probably, they're not taking the cars to work. They're on their bike, like, getting to sort of do what they love. So, let's try not to be as shitty as possible. But great shout out there, Darryl. Let's look after these guys. Let's look after our own community. And, on top of that, let's look forward to some great fights coming up. We'll do this again soon. We've got Eternal 83 after that, so no doubt we'll be back here to do that all again. See Ali Compton. We were talking about the Compton training center. We get to see Ali Compton in that card, as well as our John Martin Fraser going up against Ben Johnson. So we'll be back to talk about that one and keep our ears to the ground.
For the recap of this one, which no doubt will be a cracker.
Looking forward to the recap of that one, man. We'll do that, and then we'll do 83. So lots to look forward to. Keep an eye on that space. Let's see what it goes down in 9 days' time, man.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Darryl. See you soon, brother.
Bye, mate. Ciao.